the central piece of it, that we were all chasing that particular pool of talent. And I think it's been a very different kind of experience, a learning experience. It taught us to be more agile. It taught the businesses to be more agile. They just can't be the old ways of I will wait and watch and then let's see what happens and all that. You're already under the bus, right? Your competition is somewhere else, right? So when I spoke about demand and supply, I think it's all about talent. I think at least at Hexagon, one of the things emphasis right now is also how does industry and academia collaborate, right? So we have taken some steps to basically collaborate with some of those universities and colleges so that there is this established channel, right? At least in terms of, okay, your future potential channel in some percentage mix is coming and from, a little more orchestrated in a way that it suits your needs, right? So yeah, of course it has taught us also to be very humble with things that we have experienced across with people, with family, with friends, and anybody, right? So I think 2022 is a year to remember, no doubt about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Great points, Manoj. And I think I'll take three things from this, that it has been a year of unlearning rather than learning for you. Obviously, the differentiation between quality talent or quality demand versus the in general what is being available, and about the humility factor. I think all of us have been really humiliated, and okay, I'm saying in a good way. All of us have it has shown us the humbleness of the entire market. Okay, good. Moving on to Bijal, you how's your year have been? I'm sure it has been quite interesting though.
So there are a couple of things. I did not really get very react. I didn't have too much of a reaction with reference to the spike. And later on, when we discuss potentially, slowdown, I could be completely wrong, but I have decided to not have too much of a reaction to the perception of slowdown as well. One, because all of us, I think, collectively are about, anywhere between 15 to 20 years experience. That experience it varied. Everybody's done different things, I'm sure. But respectfully, each one of us would have seen different kinds of, scenarios, professionally as well as in the corporate arena. All of us arguably would have seen the 2008 meltdown and all of that. So I think that anybody who's seen the, summers, winters, etc., and all of that would sit back and say that the spike was going to normalize. Okay, and I feel that that process is on a continuous basis. One is that I didn't think that the spike was going to last forever, but it was good. Whoever benefited from that spike, I think, more power to them. It definitely opened a lot of opportunities for startups. They started doing well. We heard a whole lot of unicorns doing well, announcing that they've made profit or they made some kind of breakthroughs. It definitely opened the hybrid nature of work, which we all discovered for the first time. Opened opportunities for people who were perhaps on a break, or women, or people who wanted different structure or lack of structure, if one may say, with reference to the work environment. I myself have gone to office every day at 9:30 for 18 years of my life without complaint, traveling like about 1 hour, 30 minutes. Perhaps because I didn't know that there was an alternate option. At least in my industry, there isn't. Okay. And then suddenly, lo behold, whether it was me or everybody else, whatever was the value that we were adding, apparently it became clear that we could add the same value from anywhere, right? So I think it opened up opportunities for women. It opened up opportunities for people who were really struggling for a very long time, trying to communicate to the corporate arena that we want to work, but we don't necessarily want to work in the format in which organizations are structured. Can we do it a little differently? Maybe those small little voices became like one loud voice which had to be heard because of circumstances, not necessarily progressiveness by the corporate set of people, but because of circumstances. Thirdly, it may not necessarily be, connected to the corporate, scenario, but I think it definitely changed gender stereotypes, okay, in the family. So I think men got on to doing more things at home, and women started establishing, saying that
Bijal, I think you're on mute.
so your laptop's connected and you need that Wi-Fi and you need, that appropriate peaceful place. So do I, right? So I think a whole lot of, and nobody had help, right? I mean, earlier on in the pandemic, nobody had help. So I think it's redefined gender stereotypes. I think it has opened up opportunities. I think also that initially for the first couple of months, all of us who were managing teams, I personally felt it was hard for everybody. Like business did not know how that business has to happen, but how are they supposed to drive the people? HR did not know what to tell business in terms of what was the right thing to do. So I think it was very hard, but yes, it is the kind of humbling experience which everybody should. So I don't wish for the pandemic to happen to anybody. Humbling experience from time to time, not so bad for companies at all, because I think it shakes up the system, shakes up the psyche, and definitely compels all of us who have worked up to a particular point of time to think differently and find a way out. I found several solutions which I would have perhaps not gone in the direction, perhaps because they were not required, but several solutions I found during the pandemic to get my work done and for things to happen, which I'm very grateful for because I think it was great learning.
Absolutely, Vijay. And I think for all of us, I think pandemic has been a great equalizer, and at the same time, it has opened up a lot of opportunities. Probably things we did not know that could have been done in a certain way. 2020, sure, 2020 onwards, actually till 2022 till now, I think it has shown, and in fact, it keeps showing us newer and newer things on a day-to-day basis. Okay.
And see, listen, I come from banking, okay? So there is a lot of face-to-face, importance given to face-to-face interactions. Everybody wants to interview face-to-face. Everybody wants to do learning and development face-to-face. Everybody wants to do business meetings face-to-face. Everybody wants to do targets, cut discussion face-to-face. So all of that had to stop. It just had to. And despite it got either stopped or it got modified. See, banks never stopped working during the pandemic, okay? But we did modify the way in which, crowding and all of that was managed. I'm very happy to say that banking overall as a sector and HDFC Bank specifically continued to establish profits, okay? Which is a further proof that work can be done even if you change track a little bit.
I think we all are really, I think we all are really benefited from that. Banks did not stop working because then we all live for it, right? At the end of the day, at least at the end of the month. So that one message from bank is really important. Okay, cool. Thanks, Vijay. Akshat, what are your views on it? How was your 2022 has been?
So 2022. I think personally for me and professionally both was very exciting. A lot of learning coming in, and if you would ask me, I would say it tested a lot of human endurance coming around. Right, a lot of people, a lot of team members, a lot of colleagues. They came out of tough 2 years of COVID because of both professional and personal reasons out there. A lot of things happened across the country out there. The young generation Z saw something very different. They went through a remote, virtual, 100% lockdown environment for the first time in life, which they would have never imagined is possible even to think around. The mindset of the people, the approach of the people you could see was very different between 2019 and 2022. Coming around, right? The same generation, the thought process that they had in 2019 versus 22 was a lot different coming in. Of course, like Manoj said, there was a different dynamics altogether in terms of demand supply coming around in the market, or Bijal said in terms of the gender sensitization and the equalities coming around. I think from my perspective, to ask me, there was a lot of I would use the word jugaad innovation coming around, which every organization, which every individual adopted across. on the spot thinking around, on the spot finding out solutions, trying to find ways and means to do business better out there. Talent acquisition is just a subset, just a part of the entire game out there. And 22 provided a lot of varying opportunity to the potential candidate in the market out there, both from their field and off field, because we saw a lot of different opportunities getting started up itself within the country coming around, whether it is in form of startups within the IT or whether it is in terms of core business picking up pace. So if you go around and look out, manufacturing sector saw growth coming in. Oil and gas saw growth coming in. Coal, mining, energy saw growth coming in. So different sectors saw very different kind of spikes coming across the board out there. And I think that that's 2022 in a short. Exciting, energizing, refreshing year.
Aptly said, Akshat. And I think taking away from this exciting and energizing part from what you said, I want to check with Ashish, like how it has been for you, and especially from a, I'd like to throw some points about how it has been for you from diversity and inclusion point of view, how it had been, and what are your thoughts, and probably if you'd like to further add on to it, what are your 2023 plans subsequent to this? I think that would be.
No, absolutely. And to be very honest, I'm already learning a lot listening to my co-panelists speak, because I'm a newbie in HR. If you look at my experience, this is my first HR role. So that's the way we function in our company. We give roles to people who are interested in it. So I've been in diversity and inclusion for, only since the beginning of this year. So what I would say is that, I think Bijal raised a very important point about how the pandemic basically threw up opportunities. So when you think about diversity and inclusion, one of the biggest challenges there has been not of diversity. We have diversity in our organizations. We can increase it by, hiring people and getting them into, into our fold. It has always been a problem of inclusion. So when you think of, for example, a person with disability, or if you think of someone who is in a very, remote area, the fact that we are now able to work remotely, the fact that we are now able to work on Teams or Zoom or whatnot, basically has thrown open the door for anyone with a specific type of disability who otherwise would have really struggled in the normal face-to-face interactions we have in the workplace. So for those with a disability, the pandemic has actually been a boon, because today we have the means in every organization to include them into our workforce. And that was one thing which, which I'll lead to the other point, which has been our learning actually, not only in, within the company, but for companies at large. That usually when we speak about diversity and inclusion, or for, about our HR processes in general, we always think about an empathetic organization. We always think about having managers who understand what their employees are going through. Now, this is quite individual specific also. So if you have a great manager, you will get all the flexibility in the world to do what you're supposed to do. What is needed now is to make the entire organization, the setup itself, empathetic. You need to have the technology, you need to have the policy, you need to have the systems in place so that one individual cannot stop a person working from home based on his or her whims or fancy. So while this has always been a goal for all of us, I think what the pandemic has brought home to the point is that the human element will always remain the most important part of, the way we work with people or the way we interact with diversity. But it is also equally important for organizations to invest in systems and processes and policies that can help people in, work in that fashion without any bureaucratic hassle in between. And that, I think, would also be our focus in the coming year, in terms of making our organization more diverse, ensuring that, we have the tools and technologies in place to ensure, for example, that a person with disability has no problems, in the working environment, so to say. So not very different from what I'm hearing others say, but honestly, it has been cutting us both ways as well.
Okay, thanks, Ashish. And what are your high level, macro level plans around 2023? How does it look like to you, especially through a DEI lens?
Sure. So as an organization, we have always been focused on gender. That everyone has been doing so. I mean, we operate at almost a 0% gender pay gap, and that is something we are proud of. So gender balance will remain a priority, because it's not just essential for us to bring more women into the workforce, but it is also important for them to grow in the workforce. So that remains a priority. But one of the key initiatives that we have been running globally has been on the area of disability inclusion. We took some small steps this year. We ran the first recruitment drive in the history of our company where we onboarded some persons with disabilities into our organization. So that is only going to grow. We started off with a pilot at one location. We learned from it, and now we are trying to make it a truly global implementation for all of us. So the main focus would be to ensure that whatever we have learned in a limited way in one location now becomes a global enterprise in the year to come. Those two would probably be our main focus. That does not mean that we're not focusing on LGBTQ inclusion, we're not focusing on ageism, we're not focusing on veterans. No, it is just that these two would probably be our priority areas. And this is in line with what we have been saying on our website as well.
Really. So I think what my takeaway is you have done a lot of interesting stuff so far, and 2023 is more about sustaining them while growing them as well, sustaining the core and also grow on top of it. Right.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Ashish. What about you, Vijay? How's your 2023 macro level plans look like?
So HDFC Bank is going to be opening 540 more branches. Okay. Each branch is a combination of about 5 employees bare minimum. That is just one business. Okay. So we have a lot of people to hire. Quality is going to be something that we are going to struggle in terms of our acquisition strategy. We are going to struggle with that. We have been struggling because that is wherever you have huge volumes at play, quality is something which is going to be something which is going to be a challenge. Additionally, I head the build model, which involves in building capability as well as talent pipelines for the future. So that is going to be a major focus area. And the third angle is definitely we have a CEO who's very highly committed towards increasing the footprint of women within the organization. So what happened was, I'll share a small anecdote. We presented to the board, etc., and all of that, and we said we took on a target for the first time a while ago. We took on a target. We achieved the target and over exceeded a bit, and which is like single-digit numbers, okay, in terms of percentage increase. But we were thrilled to bits because in absolute numbers in a bank like ours, which is 1.5 lakh employee strength and thousands of people being hired, etc., it was a significantly big number. We thought that we had the cat's whiskers in terms of job well done, and then we suddenly were told that you have moved by a couple of percentage in terms of single digit. I want another 20% adding. Yeah, so that changes the whole game entirely. That also is very, very reassuring because I'm genuinely hopeful. To respond to your question, I'm genuinely hopeful that if we are hiring on a ward footing, if we are hiring many, many people, then I definitely see the avenue that there'll be enough scope to hire women, enough scope to hire people who have disabilities, because then sometimes, in all fairness, with reference to being pragmatic with business also, if there are certain number of restricted requirements and you want to hire people with specific experience because you need certain kind of work done, etc., and all of that, it becomes difficult to open up avenues for everybody from different walks of life. Now it is regardless of whether it is varied industries, which means that we will take people from non-banking as well. We'll have to. We'll take women. We'll take people who are differently abled. We'll take people who are retired, for that matter. Yeah. So we're open to taking people who are ex-servicemen or ex-military people. We will open all doors. So the most exciting part of the coming year or the current scenario is that it's very heartening that all doors are open. When all doors open, opportunity, inclusion, belonging, job avenues for growth, all of that will happen. Yeah.
No, I think that's a very great point, Vijay. What you made is if there are more on scale, obviously all the things that we want to do, we can do because of the larger scale of growth and larger scale of operations. When the cake itself is small, how do you distribute the pies to various specific groups?
Especially so because banking is a customer-facing industry. You are handling other people's money. With all of our, in this forum as well, with all of us being committed towards, including more people from different walks of life, if somebody had to manage our money, right, our own money, you would want a person to have sufficient amount of knowledge before they advise you, or before they transact for you, or before they facilitate any of your transactions. Now, if we are going to have a lot more people and we are going to invest heavily in grooming people, we can have a mix of people. So today, the typical branch setup, we can have somebody who comes from the D&I perspective, and we can have somebody from an experience perspective, and they can just, shoulder to shoulder, lean on each other and make the best out of their work as well as their interface with customers. Standalone situations, if suppose in a particular unit, if you have two requirements, you may need people with experience. As HR professionals, while my heart goes out to each one of these causes, that balance is something which we'll have to be realistic about in order to drive the larger goals. Otherwise, we are going to be viewed as people who are talking from a particular place. So, like, boardroom discussions and coffee table conversations, which are not really moving effectively into the business scenario. So, business interface is at the heart of all decisions. What as HR people we need to do is work around what is going to fly and try and garner support from business that your momentum will not get impacted. But these are some right things to do, and let us together do them. Yeah.
Fantastic. And in fact, you preemptively answered my next question that was about balancing, D&I and while looking at the business growth objectives. So thanks for that. And Manoj, what do you think on this? I mean, what are your thoughts around how do you plan your balance? How do you play this act?
Well, in the first place, I think, Ashish and Vijay, very heartening to know about what each of your organizations is basically, trying to do on the, DI space, right? Absolutely commendable job, and, all the very best as we progress. Just a few more points on that, and then probably I'll, get to the question there. I think on the point of DI, I think, organizations with very genuine intent, let me put it that way, right? With genuine intent would still pursue this as a priority, okay? Because irrespective of, whether you're hiring 100 people, 1,000 people, 50 people, once, like Ashish did mention that once an organization with a genuine intent will definitely invest, right, in making sure that, okay, this is not a individual driven, that, okay, I'm going to support somebody who's, differently able or something like that. But at the organization level, when the genuine investment happens, that is when you would have your, DI committees, councils, a framework and processor workplace, confirmation to anything, right? With respect to, what needs to be, provided in terms of the facilities and accessibility and stuff like that, right? So that will happen. So for us at Hexagon, on the DI space, we did form a council. Of course, we are taking, some baby steps there, but it's a good start. The organization definitely has a very genuine intent, right? And we did start with the D&A council. We did council is formed by a few members of the organization. So they come up with the recommendations, right? Gender diversity, as we know, as in a diversity thing, has always been there. I mean, if you ask any organization, they would say, what is diversity? What diversity would you have? Then the first thing that they would raise their hand is gender diversity. But I think what Ashish mentioned and what Vijay also mentioned is, diversity, when we're talking about equality, inclusiveness, I think that is the biggest challenge, right? I think so we did launch a diversity hiring, because more from a hiring perspective, we did launch something called the motherboard, right? Last time. That was our pilot, and that was a lot of learning for all of us, just like what Ashish also did mention earlier. So a lot of learnings from that, and then this time, we are going with a second season of it, right? So we know that very genuinely that is something that we actually want to take it out, and then see what can be offered to the deserving candidates out there, right? So that will continue. I'm glad that our friends here spoke about that. And that, to your point, Kanaya, about balancing, some of those challenges, basically, right? I think Bijal was bang on when she said that HR can play that advisory role, right? A very, key advisory role, or be that enabler for you, right? But end of the day, we all understand that it is all business driven, right? End of the day, it is what makes sense for an organization, right? End of the day, it is about your P&L, your bottom lines, and that is what it is. I mean, all the organizations that we have here are the nature of work might be very different, but end of the day, everybody is looking at their bottom line, top line. That's what the board discussion is. But I think HR, has plays a very how do I put this? Has to tread very carefully when the balancing act happens, right? Because HR is the face of it, right? Decisions are taken, but then we are the spokesman, right? The spokesperson and the people who take action, right? So it is very natural that HR is perceived as the evil, right? But I think for HR leaders, I think no doubt it is a tough call to in terms of what kind of steps do they take. We've seen organizations, especially on the ed tech and a few of the startups, pull the plug, and then we have seen a lot of LinkedIn posts, very touching in some instances, right? Which is it could be life changing even for a lot of people. And those are tough calls. I can understand how that person who would have actually broken that news, right, with this individual would have gone through, right? Because individually, personally, nobody would want to be in that place, desirable, right? Like, I want to break this news to you. But I think balancing is definitely, a tough call in terms of taking those tough decisions and, be it layoffs, letting people go. I think HR leaders, end of the day, to the line of what the business is, what is best for the company, right? I'm sure all these decisions have been very consciously taken. Of course, we individually, being outside of that particular organization, are entitled for our opinions, right? But you'll have to think from what made this organization take that kind of a call. So yeah, HR leaders take the brunt, but that's the reality. But it's more what's been a business decision, what makes sense for the company end of the day. Yeah, that's my take on it. Yes.
Thanks, Manoj, for humanizing the entire aspect of being an HR. And the second point, as you rightly said, we all are working, at least the people on this forum, I think most of us, if not all, are working for profit enterprises. We can only do the things that we want to do if the organization hits those bottom lines and top line targets, right? So that's the key factor over there. That's what my take would be. Akshat, what do you think about this whole balancing act? What are your take on it?
So, see, I won't call it as a balancing act out there. I think TNI, a couple of years back, if you would have started around, I would have said, yes, we should talk about it as a lot more, saying that, are we bringing in balance? Are we trying to create some ecosystems and things out there? I think over a period of time, and thanks to COVID, to a large extent, people realized the amount of gap, whether it is in terms of gender, whether it is in terms of ability and things out there, which was in existence out there in 2022, gave a lot of emphasis in terms of bridging those things out there, right? From top to bottom. From an organization perspective, if you look at it, managers who are forefront from a hiring decision perspective, so you would see a very much stark difference in terms of their approach, because they understand and appreciated the reality and the fact that it does not matter whether you are a male or a female out there. At the end of the day, what matters is the competency and the caliber out there, because I think 2020 and 21 taught them sitting at home that that it's not easy to just let and just think of from a one-way perspective coming around. There's a lot of different things coming out, right? So the balancing started from home itself coming around, which carried forward to the corporate at a larger level. There was a larger, at least from my perspective and in the organization, we could see a larger push coming from the hiring managers from top to bottom, everyone respecting the approach, understanding why it is important, why different voices are important. Does not matter whether you are an LGBTQ or a PWD or just a gender diversity profile out there, but why it is important and how does it add business value to the entire spectrum of things coming around. And that led to a lot more easier discussions than thinking around. And like Bijal said and Manoj said also, I think pay parities and everything's are given. I mean, there's definitely no chance that you're going to have any differential things out there. That's always at par, because gender does not matter at the end of the day. And that created a lot of push within the ecosystem to explore different avenues. And that's why I said, looking out and exploring a lot of different avenues started out there in 2022 to bridge the gaps and see how we can do more and how we can support, including creation of internal resource groups, creation of internal training materials for the managers, for the employees, bringing people up forefront, running with them, trying to see, okay, how are you going to hire, keeping the competency at the back of the mind. Right? So that's what we did.
In fact, that reminds me of one of the conversations I had with one of my stakeholders in Curve Digital. And so we were involved in a lot of fresh grads hiring. And he said that one thing, and we are a software development company. So what he brought into point is, I don't care what somebody's score in their education was, what stream they studied, what their gender is, or where they are coming from, which university, and all those things. As long as somebody can code, I will interview them, is what he had told. And I think that's what matters in our kind of scenario, because we, being a software development company, our core competency is programming. So
Right.
that, I think what you brought in, I think that reminded me of that conversation, Akshat. So
yes.
Thanks.
I think that's a very, very relevant point, Kanaya, that you brought in, is because I think when we are talking about industry transformation, the way the entire industry is moved, right? I think companies also need to kind of ponder on that. How did I operate? What was my process that I followed, right? For example, organizations which were very, very particular about, hey, how much did you score in your 10th? How does it matter, right? Like, for example, right? Okay, what was your rank in a particular entrance exam, right? And those kind of things needs to be that's history. I mean, if you actually look at looking at the way forward, I think exactly your points. I think the thought process when we are talking about, hey, we need to deliver on stuff, right? We need to look at how do we do things differently. And if you have so many filters, right?
Yeah.
You are filtering way too much, and then that is where the struggle is. That is where there is the choking point of the people probably who don't have a computer science degree, for example, right? I have seen a lot of people within the within my circle, some of them very close, who are brilliant, right? Who are brilliant, and they are at places they have but if you actually look at their background, probably they're probably a non-engineering degree, for example, right? But these are the best people who are able to do your job. So very relevant. I think probably leaders should also toe that line of what your leader was talking about, that I need people who could sit here and code. I don't really it doesn't really matter, which university, which school, did they go to a convent, did they go to a small school, it doesn't really matter, right? At the end of the day, you got to deliver what you got to deliver. So, yeah, I think that's one point that all of us should very, very seriously think about. Yeah.
And
World is
there are
changing. World is changing.
Can I add something here?
yeah,
Because,
sure.
So I really feel very strongly about this, and I have made it my life mission to mention it in all forums where
Hmm.
I think that on the receiving end there are people who can influence this decision. Okay?
Right.
So very early in my career, I learned when you start your career, you sort of are told about grades, okay, compensation grades,
Yeah.
academic background, and all of that. And I'm not at all here questioning the intellect or questioning the brilliance of people who have created that. I also believe that you need that kind of a structure when it's a large corporation, right? You need some structure, some reference point. Otherwise, it can become like very chaotic. But having said all of that, if at all you have to put a system or a structure or a grid in place, right? It is my ultimate dream. And I'm telling you, one day, sometime in life, I will become an HR head, right? One day, no matter what the size of the company is, and many more companies, I feel that, hopefully other professionals also feel that way. I genuinely hope for this pay for the job thing to happen. It is my, it is like my thing. I genuinely hope that that happens in the industry, and we not taking away from brilliant academic institutions and what they contribute to people. I am sure they contribute very well. And I have myself interacted with very brilliant people, considering I have managed campus and, been the head of university relations for a very long time. So I'm completely respecting that. Okay. So that should be given credit in a different way, but pay for the job, which means that in case your talent is coming from a tier 3, tier 4 kind of institute as well, like you folks at code. In our scenario, it is sales. In somebody else's organization, it could be something else. If they can do that job, and if we find a good way of assessing whether they can do that job, I genuinely hope that organizations will move towards pay for the skill, pay for the job, pay for that, pay for exactly that. Now, whether they are able to work hybrid, whether they can come full time, whether they are men or women, whether they come from premium institutes or not, pay for the job. Just pay for the job.
We all hope to achieve that, definitely, Bijal. And I think, Ashish, I'm sure you have your points around that. So would you like
Yes,
to
actually.
enlighten us? Yeah.
So first of all, when I smile and a bit when I hear about HR being considered evil. I'm from the other side of now in HR, right? So I see both the sides. I wouldn't say that HR can never be considered evil. I mean, we perform an important function. The only difference I've seen is that sometimes when it comes to taking risks, since HR is so cognizant about the nuances of how human relationships and personnel works, they deliberate a lot more. They are more cognizant of taking a decision around, for example, the whole return to work discussion or whatnot in any organization. In comparison to, say, someone who's doing a project, they just want to go ahead and do it, which pretty much like a bull in a china shop. So there is some context there, but the thought of balancing out D&I in whether we are in a recession or not, if we end up making that decision in an organization, then perhaps we should really ask ourselves whether D&I is being done with the right intention, or is it a check in the box? Because if we are going to let go of, because all of us have been in the industry for a fairly long time, we have seen many cycles, up cycles and down cycles. If we are facing this challenge that somebody who's on the hiring side, the hiring manager, so to say, if they are being pushed into doing something, then are they truly committed to the goal, or are they doing it because there is a push from the top that there is a KRA, you need to fulfill this percentage? Because if that is the case, then in any case, you've lost the battle on D&I. So my humble opinion is that maybe even if it means that the going is slower, maybe engaging with the community at large in the organization and not making D&I an HR goal could be one way in which we could do it, because that is how we are also finding a little bit of success, because it's not necessarily just an HR initiative, it is a company initiative that we're trying to do. However, it is hard. I mean, I hear every point that has been made over here, and they have been made very well. But I honestly feel that if we are talking about balancing any of these parameters, then we are basically othering all these other communities. And that is not the point of D&I.
Right. And do you feel it, a constant struggle to ensure that it's not only HR's intent, but the whole organization's intent to do this,
Sure.
Ashish?
Absolutely. Manoj raised a very nice point about the D&I Council, for example. So our D&I initiative in our company is also an outcome of a D&I Council. We have had the council for about 2 years now, and it comprises of people from every function. There are people from HR over there as well. I used to be a member as well. In fact, it was one of the recommendations of the council that you need someone to do this full time, and that is how I got catapulted into the role. But the benefit of that is that if you have representative senior people from the company who are a part of the council, those who can influence the decisions that you need to make as an organization, if they are the ones driving the priorities, then the convincing becomes easier. A lot of the times, if the initiative is purely being driven by only one function, then it's hard to convince the other functions to take part. Just like any other program, even if this is a program to set up a new mindset in the organization, the more the number of people which are involved, the easier the progress is likely to be. There'll be more conflicts, but once those are resolved, the progress might be slightly more easier.
Valid point. So linking it to the larger organization goals, linking it to profitability, innovation quotient of the organization, I think definitely helps adding a lot more weightage around the initiative. In lieu of the limited amount of time that we have, I have a couple of more points that I'd like to discuss. So wellness around the workplace especially has been one of the buzzwords, at least in the last 6 months that we have seen of 2022. And what I want to understand is what are you at your current roles or in your organization at large as are doing in order to implement those wellness strategies? And probably we'll go with Ashish itself. You want to start around that?
Oh, so let me focus on one part of it, and I'm sure a lot of other things will come out. So we are running this initiative, as I said, around disability inclusion, and as a part of that initiative, we gave all our employees a chance to self-declare in case they have a disability, because we never really captured that metric in the past. We were surprised by the number of responses. I'll not go into the numbers, that's confidential. But the number of employees who shared with us that they have a mental health issue was stunning. Many of these were people with whom all of us, those of us who have access to that information, have worked with in projects in the past. And we didn't realize that they were dealing with an ailment of their own. And that only brought home the point that when we speak about disabilities, very often the invisible disabilities are missed out, and mental health remains one of those. So I would say that this whole pandemic has kind of highlighted the fact that we take care of employees in multiple ways, but giving them a safe space to think about, their issues in terms of their mental health or psychological health is equally important. Especially by going by the numbers that we saw, going by a very small sample of one site, the number is very significant. Just because somebody is not saying or telling you every day that they're okay, does not mean that they're okay. So that will be a focus for sure.
Yeah, definitely, I think can empathize on that point, having dealt with some of those cases in our organization as well. And from moving on from Ashish to Akshat, what do you think around this entire workplace wellness? What are you doing? What are your plans to do next year?
So like Ashish said, workplace wellness is the key out there, and the different models that are getting adopted around, right? Whether it is hybrid or whether it is remote working, on-premise working, permanent working from home, and different models that companies are adopting across, wellness becomes an extremely important part, and mental health being tops it to a larger extent coming around. So even at Thermo Fisher, for us, employee wellness and well-being is one of the top priorities. And for us, it is not just about the employee, but we also look and say, can we look at the immediate family? Because it's not you alone. If your immediate family is not keeping well, or they are undergoing certain major personal change of equations happening around or anything, the employee will have an extra, pressure, which is not which can be caused because of any reasons going on from fact, right? So at Thermo Fisher, we look around from an employee well-being to the family is part of us as a holistic piece out there. So the well-being at a larger level coming around. And within well-being, of course, different forms of things out there. We have done tie-ups with doctors available 24/7 online. So that people you don't need to take an appointment, you don't need to take a leave, you don't need to talk to HR, you don't need to talk to anybody. You can just directly go there, consult, take an opinion, and think, okay, what is needed around there. We bring in different specialists from the industry, do various sessions coming across virtually, so that more and more employees can join and ask questions coming in, whether you talk about when the COVID was high, you're talking about COVID and the various things related to COVID. And you can imagine this happening in a company which is still into our life sciences side. And for a lot of drugs, we do testing out there, a lot of chemical supplies for the drugs we do around, and the entire life science we do. And still, that was very important for us to go ahead and push that, because as an ecosystem, as an employee, it's very important that mental well-being, wellness, clarity of what is happening across the board and why it is happening, and what can you do as an individual to overcome that. Maintaining the work-life balance in the, especially with the current changing scenarios and things out there, those becomes an essential part of the ecosystem. And that is what we are trying to focus, and that will continue to remain a focus area for us, and that's a key focus area for us.
Yeah, good initiative, Akshat. And I think you have hit the nail there, to include the family aspect of it, so that and I think sometimes those are the people who get direct burnt of the negative side of negative impacts of it, more than the organization. It's the employee's family who has to bear them. So good catch there. Manoj, what do you think?
Well, I think wellness, absolutely, we're calling it the buzzword, whatever it is. I think it is it has only come to the in terms of visibility more so the last 2 years, right? And of course, companies did have, in terms of the wellness, well-being, in terms of having probably access to a gym, or a few other things, or doctor on visiting the employees in the office and all that, right? But when the pandemic hit, and we like in a snap, we all went remote, and people did undergo a lot of other challenges and things like that. So for us, it was a very conscious call that we did this almost 2 years ago, right? I think mid 2020 that we realized that, hey, I think there's no human touch. Basically, everybody's on virtual. We are onboarding people virtually. There is no touch point. There's no physical touch point. Managers never met anybody. They're all doing Teams calls and things like that, right? And of course, we are all experiencing the pandemic. That's when we took a very conscious call of how do we enhance the wellness part of it. Focus was more a little more on the holistic areas in that sense, and more so the mental psychological aspect of it, right? And then so we do have a tie-up with a third party called Round Glass, which continues the services, and then employees have an option to basically, and also families, like Akshat rightly said, it's not just the employee, but also the family, which probably is undergoing the same kind of things that the employee is actually going through. So it did give them access, counselor 24/7. It's absolute confidential, privacy is maintained. You can talk anything that is actually bothering you, and then of course your mental psychological thing was one of the top things that we do get a report, but not just on the very broad theme of what our employees are basically seeking services on. And sleep disorder is another area that a lot of our employees have actually gone and then spoken to a counselor. How do I deal with this and things like that, because of the stress, etc., etc. And also on areas of parenting and counseling for married couples issues. How do we deal with the home situation, work-life balance, a lot of things. So our focus continues, as we did have a little head start. We did start this way back in 2020. So that remains, that continues, and then that's an area of focus for sure for all of us. Yes.
Thank you, Manoj. Last but not the least, Vijay, what are your thoughts around this?
So the bank has always been very kind when it comes to people who may have any kind of a physical illness, hospitalization. We've always had a ex gratia coffer which has been used in order to extend support beyond insurance, etc. During COVID, I think, a lot of care packages got announced for people who lost people, for employees whom we lost. It's frightening as to, the first couple of people whom we lost because of COVID, and when we came to know how we felt that, there is a need for care packages to come to the fore, providing employment to their kith and kin. All of that became much more organized and stronger. HR started reaching out to independent people as well as their families in order to support. So that's the part with reference to support on any kind of physical illness or ailment or need that employees may have. Coming to the mental well-being, one important thing which I have noticed amongst employees, and I think it's applicable to me as well, when people started stepping out, right, I sensed a huge resistance of people to come back to office. One could argue and say that has got to do with the fact that, you're comfortable at home, you are in charge of your day, you can do more things, you can be with your family, etc. But I think there was a certain level of detachment and disassociation which happened from the spirit of the organization, from colleagues, from the workplace, from the environment which one cultivates at the workplace. Gradually, we've tried to make people more and more comfortable. We've offered support in terms of pleasant parenthood, where we've opened up more and more creches for employees to bring their children to. Because you make the change, you ask people to come back, but how? Right? People have already gone into some kind of their own format which they are able to juggle when they are at home. That may not necessarily be true when they come back to office, right? So that is there. But I would also be very honest in saying, I don't know, my colleagues may have had a different experience. When it comes to counseling, when it comes to mental well-being, when it comes to support in terms of how you're feeling and the different things, right, from sleep to anxiety to any of those things, I think they are sky high in the current time. And very sadly, the utilization of whatever corporates are offering in terms of services and support, whether it is external vendors, coaching, counseling, etc., how many employees are truly using that facility, right? How many employees are actually stepping forward and saying that I need help, I really need help, and I can do my job, and there's no need to judge an individual basis, whatever they may be going through emotionally, so they can do their job, but at the same time, they just need perhaps somebody to talk to, somebody to anchor their thought process with, etc. So how many people are really opting for all of that? I think the percentage is very, very negligible. It could be socialization, it could be the country that we live in, the culture that we are brought up with, the misguided understanding that if somebody asks for help, they're considered weak. Especially so if men, extend their hand and say, I'm really overwhelmed. Like one large thing which I think is applicable for mankind at this point of time is that a lot of people are overwhelmed, but I don't think that enough is being done by people to step forward themselves and seek any kind of assistance towards trying to work around this particular feeling. So all of this has been extended, but I'd still be very honest in saying that utilization is still not there. I think that sense of people being bothered is very high, but utilization of a formal service is not as high as one would sort of expect it to be.
Valid point, Vijay. I think we all can have all the right intentions, but unless people use it, it all goes for a toss. We have already overshot time, so I'll for the last question, I'll only give 30 seconds to each one of you, and that is about a newest buzzword in the entire hiring trend. Do you think a 4-day work week is possible in India? I'll start with Bijal. Just a yes/no answer. Probably 10 seconds to give your points if you can is good enough.
Yes, it can be done. And I think that people should define what is expected. Keep it very concrete in terms of what is expected out of that employee and the measurables for the same. And then you do 4 days, 4.5 days, 5 days, whichever version, swings it for the company and the individual. I think it should work. So define what has to be done and define what is the outcome expected and how the person is going to be assessed, and the number of days should not matter.
Fantastic. Okay, Manoj, you're next.
It is possible, but there are 3 things which will actually make it possible. First thing, Vijay, say on the same points. One, the first thing is discipline, right? Second thing is discipline, and third thing is also discipline, right? Discipline in every fashion, from the employee, from the manager, from the organization, in terms of setting that expectations, having that trust, sincerity in getting things done. And in a practical sense, yes, why not? But given things that we get influenced around, I think having a discipline, plan your things out, and makes it absolutely workable. But yeah, also we'll have to also ask whether it applies to all sectors or no, right? Because certain challenges, but definitely doable if you ask me. But a lot of commitment and determination from all of the parties involved, for sure. Yes.
Thanks, Manoj. Expectation, discipline, and obviously applicability. This is what my take is. Akshat, what are your thoughts on it?
I think I will say it can be explored. And like Manoj said, right? I mean, we need to still study a lot more in terms of applicability, which job, which industry, how will it impact, and things out there. So will not say an absolutely an outright no, but it can be definitely an exploration which we can do around it. Explore a lot more.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Akshat. Ashish, last but not the least, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about a flight to Mars with people in it. It's possible, but needs a hell lot of work, right? So I would say yes, it is possible, but there is a lot of preparation that needs to happen. We always say we measure outcomes and not effort. So if you're truly saying that, then yes, theoretically it is possible, but implementing it on the ground needs a lot of work. And as Manoj said, maybe not all sectors might be ready for it. In IT, for sure, it is something which can be explored.
So like we need to identify who will travel to Mars at the same way we have to travel, who is it for, how it is for, and by when it is for. Okay, great. I think I'd sum it up on that. Thank you, everyone. I think we have had a lovely conversation. Thanks for your time. I'll hand it over to Ankita for closing notes.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing such powerful insights. I think this is one of the best ways that we have experience to kickstart our webinar series. All the questions, I have got some questions personally on my chat, so I'm just going to start asking that. One question that we have received is the entire new generation or Gen Z that is coming to work and joining after college. So they already are seeing many companies abroad doing the entire flexible working kind of a thing where maybe 3 days they are coming to office and 2 days they are working from home kind of a thing. But whenever they are going and approaching at the interview level with the HR people, the first kind of stopping point is coming from there. Then we are not there yet where we won't be able to give you flexible working. So at different industry point of views, I just wanted to understand, where do we stand there? Is there a possibility? Are people exploring it? And anyone who has any of insights can kind of shed light on this issue.
So I'll start. We have been following hybrid model for quite some time now, Ankita, out there, right? At Thermo Fisher, and it cut across all forms of jobs that we're doing around. Whether you talk about research, to sales, to IT, to core business, to engineering, to everything, because we work across all primary possibilities that do exist. Is it 100% sustainable in every field, every job? I think the question still needs to be answered, because we need to still look at, right? I mean, you can't do it 100% of the time for every job, every point of time out there. It will have changes, it will have impact, but yes, we are doing it. As of today, as I speak, we do have a hybrid model in place.
Okay. That's insightful. Anyone else with any other perspective?
One small point, I know that, this may not be received very well or very popularly, but I think early on in people's career, over and above the fact that, customer facing jobs, or like Manoj said, that, we need to identify the roles where something may or may not work. I think early on in career, there may be merit in sort of being around colleagues, being around people from whom you can learn, instead of necessarily, I'm all for flexibility, but these many days or that many days early on in their career, I think it would help them, since I had campus relations as well. I think it would help people to be around how, the corporate arena works, to be around the people, to be around the actual work and how it sort of unfolds. So I do feel that in the early stages, people may benefit from being inside office, putting in that time and putting in, that effort to overall build their career approach.
Absolutely, Bijal. I think that's a great point. I think just adding on to that, right? So we also operate on a hybrid model. Majority of the workforce basically has opted for it, and but we are flexible. And then if you actually want to come 5 days to the office, you're welcome. Work how it actually works with the other team members, with your supervisor and things like that, right? When it comes to the early talent, the fresh grads, while this option is available, right, that they can offer on hybrid. But I think there's a point that, some of the managers very subtly, kind of pass on this message, but because it can't be very different to what the, others in the organization are, kind of experiencing in terms of the options, right? So they do very subtly encourage them, as Bijal has absolute, valid point that as somebody who's, new to the corporate, new to the, starting the careers, being there, to be able to kind of interact with people, being around, watch and learn happens a lot than, teaching and, learning in that sense, right? At least this is what I believe in. I think, that works. And, if that is something that the young generation, kind of understands that how it can help them basically, right? And it's only to their advantage. Absolutely.
Yeah. The foundation of the career, the beginning stage is very important. You have to be there and observing the entire process and how the systems work, and then maybe you can opt for the option. Absolutely. There is one more question that has come in regards of the same thing that we're talking about. It says that pandemic enabled most of us to work from home or hybrid or may in different ways and environment. However, somewhere isn't the process got diluted. How do we be more precise on the process? Anyone can pick it up.
Maybe I'll take a shot at this. So I'll explain this. So even before the pandemic started, and when I was leading an IT program, the program was spread across 7 countries. We worked on the project for 12 months, never met each other. The project was a success. Are we friends? All of us were working on the program. We were. So the question is, the process has always been there. And that is basically to do with the understanding you develop with your team members. In some cases, you make it explicit. Agile calls it the working model of a team. In some cases, the organization lays down the policies for you. I think we should not overthink this. It is possible to work from home. Every organization, as Manoj and Ankshit both have pointed out, has adopted a hybrid model. The question is having the intent to make it work. Process sometimes can be a roadblock also, because if everyone is telling you what to do and what not to do, nobody will like that either. So I think it's a fine balance, and in a lot of ways, us as professionals can always make it work. Being available, being accountable, that is usually more than enough.
Yeah, I think that's a very precise and perfect answer for talking about processes. Absolutely. There is one last question from my side that I would like to ask, that after the entire Twitter layoff thing that happened, like, Twitter and all other platforms went crazy, and a couple of Indian organizations also went on the same path. But like in the regards of the entire recession and people getting laid off, what is your opinion? How 2023 is looking like? Are we expecting layoffs? Are we expecting more hirings? What's happening?
It's going to be business as usual, at least at Thermo Fisher for us out there. We do not expect changes happening out or anything. Yes, the quality of hiring, the kind of profiles that may undergo a change, the business dynamics may undergo a change, the investments may undergo a change. But it is very positive. We are hiring. We do have multiple open jobs right now as I speak around, and we are seeing a good growth in 2023 coming around. And of course, life science businesses. We are in a business which is all about health, safety, security, and things out there. So there is always an opportunity on that side. So it's positive.
Okay. Bijal, any perspectives from your side?
I think there's going to be an ebb and a flow. Okay. There's not going to be like this one spike environment which was there. That may not be there. There will be periods where there will be some, let's go back to the drawing board, hold on our expansion or hold on our hiring of people and come back. I don't expect that there's going to be like this huge trend of layoff. Twitter is a very, very, I'm sorry to say, but it's a very bad example of all of what can and should or could happen. Okay, I mean, it is just after me thinking that, you've seen all kinds of things, it has really unnerved me. So I think Twitter is a bad reference point in the first place. I don't think that, organizations, any organization for that matter, behaves with that level of sharpness and harshness. Okay. Normalization in terms of requirements may happen. People who may have performance issues may find it difficult to continue to be relevant, if I may say. But that may not necessarily be the impact of recession or anything else. That is a business call. It comes under some level of discussion and a scanner because of the times that one is sort of experiencing and in the age of social media, etc. But I don't feel. I think by the way, I would also like to say that, as an economy, we've been able to relatively, not that I'm an expert at this topic, but if you read the India story, we've been able to hold on, right, as compared to Europe or wherever else. So I think that same sentiment, I'd like to definitely hold on to that sentiment, that in the same way, the corporate arena will also hold on to some level of, patience as well as stability. And lastly, I genuinely feel that this is the time where hiring or no hiring, I think this is the time that organizations should put in all of their effort to become bigger, stronger, and better in the future. It is not wartime at which you strategize. It is peacetime at which you get all your forces in place and all of your thoughts in place in terms of, how you're going to sustain for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So I think this should also be utilized as that period. There's no requirement to cut staff, no requirement. You strategize better for the long run. You collect talent, you work on talent and invest on talent. It will yield you results in the long run.
Okay. That's very reassuring from your side also, Bijal. Thank you. Okay, I think on that note, we'll be ending today's discussion. Thank you, panelists, for giving time, and it was such a fruitful discussion. I think all of us learned a bunch of new things, and we'll be getting into the 2023 gear with this kind of motivation. Thank you, participants, for joining in. We will be having these kind of webinars starting from next year. We are expecting to have 2 to 3 webinars every month. So I expect the same kind of response from your side. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us. It was good interaction. Thanks.